Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. Today I'm here with Kamoga Hassan from the Queer Kampala Film Festival in Uganda. Hi Kamoga, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you.
Kamoga, what brings you to Hong Kong and the Human Dignity Festival?
Well, in Uganda, I'm one of the principal founders of the Queer Kampala International Film Festival, which is the only LGBTI film festival to open up in Uganda and one of the only festivals that runs in a country where it is criminalized to be queer. I came here in Hong Kong because I was invited for the Human Rights Dignity Festival. I was joining other human rights activists from different countries.
And how long have you been running this film festival in Uganda?
Well, the festival started in 2016 and then we are going to have the second edition in December. It's coming back in December. It will start on the 8th to the 10th December.
Oh, so it's only the second time?
Yes, so this is going to be like the second edition.
So why did you decide to do a queer film festival in Uganda?
First of all, in Uganda, the LGBTI community has not been well represented by the main media houses in Uganda. Like there's a lot of bad propaganda that has been going on about the LGBTI community. So we started this journey by doing some human rights films. Our first film was called Outed, The Painful Reality. This is a film that was talking about newspapers outing the LGBTI community and the dangers they were facing. When we finished this film, we screened it locally, and then we also toured a number of LGBTI-themed festivals around the world, and then the film was well received. So we realized that when you screen a film, you can actually change people's mindsets about sexuality. And then this actually gave birth to the Queer Kampala International Film Festival. So this is how the festival came about.
Do you find that there's newspapers that out people in Uganda for their sexuality?
Yes, some local newspapers are still doing it. But then these are newspapers that are not known. So they think by publishing stories about the LGBTI community, they can actually sell more papers. But then, to me, ethically, that is not professional journalism, because when you out me, you put my photos, you put my contact details, you don't know the dangers that you're actually exposing me. Like, I remember there was a time when newspapers were doing this, and then people lost their jobs. We also have some of our friends who actually had to leave the country to go settle in other places where they don't belong. Some people were rejected by their families. Because, imagine when you've been living and then you've never told anyone about your sexuality. Then you just wake up one day and then your details are published in the newspaper.
So do you know people who have had to leave the country because they've been outed?
Yes, I know a number of people who actually left. I know about 11 people. But then their stories represent so many people out there. Like, for example, in 2014, when the Ugandan president signed the anti-homosexuality bill, we had so many people who left Uganda and then most of them went to places like Nairobi. And then they were put in isolation places, like in refugee centers. Some actually managed to go to Europe. Others went to North America. But then they didn't leave the country because they never wanted to be there. They were not economical refugees. These are people who actually had businesses in Uganda. But then they felt like they were not safe.
So what sort of things can happen to people who are outed?
First of all, you can lose your job because there is no any Ugandan company that wants to associate with anyone who is part of the LGBTI community. And then there are people who actually were told to leave their places, like places of residence, and they had to go find other places to live In some rare incidences, people were outed. Some of them were actually murdered. I don't know if you know the story of David Kato, who we consider as the father of the gay rights movement in Uganda. But then there were also other people.
Can you tell me the story of David? What happened?
Well, David, first of all, we consider him as the father of the gay rights movement in Uganda. He was the first gay man to publicly come out, like on TV, to tell people that he was gay.
When was this?
Back, like in 2009. But then even before that, he was already doing like some community work and all that. But then he was murdered in 2011. So when he came out, like he got a lot of media attention, like both locally and in Uganda. He was exposed to so many people. Then in 2011, he was murdered in his home in a place called Mukono, one of the suburbs in Kampala.
And why do you think that people are so against LGBTQ people in Uganda? Apart from the fact that it's against the law, but why is it so unacceptable?
Well, first of all, they think it's something that is against the African culture. Like when you look at most countries in Africa, there's a lot of HIV that is happening there. And all these bad things have been blamed about LGBTI community of spreading diseases, like recruiting children into homosexuality. They think it's un-African to be gay.
Is it also linked to religion?
Yes, it's also linked to religion. But then I would say the religious hatred that we are facing now is actually a new wave, because we got a problem of American evangelicals who went to Uganda and they were spreading these anti-gay propagandas. But then before that, like, it never used to be a problem. Like, I remember growing up in Uganda, like, people never even, like, used to discuss their sexuality in public. It was never a problem. And we don't even, like, have it anywhere, even during the colonial era. If you go into our history, you'll never see, like, gay people being murdered. So this is actually something very new to us.
So you said that the president signed an anti-homosexuality bill. When was that?
The first one they drafted, which was known as the Kill the Gay Bill internationally, was drafted in 2009. It was a private members bill introduced by someone called Bahati, David Bahati. But then due to the international pressure and criticism, they changed it to life imprisonment. So
so could you be killed for being gay?
Yes, you could actually be killed for being gay.
Right.
But then there was a lot of pressure on the Ugandan government. Even the activists in Uganda went to court and they challenged this bad bill. So they introduced something new, which was where they had actually removed, like, the death sentence.
When you grew up, when did you realize that you were gay? At what age?
Well, I started liking boys like when I was 15, as far as I can remember, but it never used to be like a problem. Like I was someone who was always in the closet. Like I never even used to tell people about my sexuality and all that.
Did you understand what homosexuality was?
No, by that time I didn't actually understand it, because to me, from day one, it felt like something normal, just like people are in heterosexual relationships.
Are you obviously out in Uganda because you are running this festival? Your sexuality is known?
Yes, because of the work that I'm doing, I actually didn't have to tell people about who I am. Like in Uganda, even if you're just an ally, as long as you support the LGBTI community, they'll say, he's gay, she's gay. They don't always have to ask why you support.
Oh, so they don't recognize straight allies?
No. They'll just label you as long as you support. Like we have Bishop Christopher Senyonjo. He's just one of those religious allies, but people are labeling him as gay, but he has a wife and he has kids, and.
But he's just trying to support the LGBTQ movement. Yeah,
he's just trying to support the LGBTI movement. But then, of course, he was chased away from the Church of Uganda. So right now he's no longer serving the church.
Also, because of his support, he was let go from the church.
Yeah, he was let go from the church, and then they didn't even give him his money. He served the Ugandan church for so long.
Oh, that's really sad and
Yeah.
unfair. That's terrible.
I mean, he's just surviving like on handouts. Like, this is someone who is actually very old. You know, like, of course, right now, I don't think that he can even like find a job to work because he's very old. So to me, I was surprised that even when they were telling him to leave the church, they didn't pay him the money that he was supposed to get because he worked for the church for so long.
And is this just because he spoke out in his church sermons, or because he speaking to the media, or?
Before, he was not vocal, but when newspapers were actually outing people, and then when we were even also seeing what was coming from the West, those religious evangelicals were coming to Uganda. But then he became more vocal when David Kato was actually killed.
Oh, right.
Yes, so, and then from that time, he was labeled as a gay man, as a gay religious bishop, you know.
So obviously your film festival is a way of educating people, is that right?
Yes, our main goal is to educate people about sexuality. Though, of course, some anti-gay people have actually labeled us as people who are actually trying to promote homosexuality. But then our answer is to show films and then bring people who are even outside the LGBTI community to understand what it actually means to be gay. So the main purpose is actually to educate the general population about sexuality.
And do you feel like it's had any effect? Like, have the newspapers stopped outing people, or do they still do that?
Well, they are still doing that, but then I would say some of these things are actually reducing. You know, like for example, when we did the first edition, we got 836 people who came for 3 days. But then these were not only people from the LGBTI community. We also got people outside the LGBTI community who actually were changed. Like, people started even like writing to us, telling us, oh my God, I used to think that the LGBTI community was actually the problem. But they are also human beings just like anyone. Because of the films that they watched and the dialogues that they participated in, because we also had like discussions. And then some people even like started writing to us, telling us that their kids could actually be gay because of the way they see them and all that. So to me, that was really something very positive. And I believe if we keep on like doing it, though it's going to be a gradual process, but we are changing hearts and minds.
Step by step.
Step by step.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so you've influenced the people that came, and possibly they go and talk to their families. Did you have any media attention for what you were doing?
Yes, we got like some Christian newspapers. There was an article that came out. Gay Bishop supports. Actually, this was about Bishop Senyonjo because he was one of the people who actually supported the festival when it started. And then we also appeared like in a number of international media, platforms.
Obviously, was the article from the Christian group, was that a negative article? And then the international articles were more positive, is that right?
The local articles were actually negative, but the international ones were so positive.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's really good. And you've only run one festival, and then your next one is coming up in December, is that right?
Yeah, the next one is coming up in December. So what is so good about the festival, we allow everyone to come. So people even who come to the festival, they don't have to pay any money. So they can attend any of our events for free.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
So are you relying on donations and support for your festival?
Yes, in order for us to do this festival, of course we need support because we are not charging money, obviously. But in Uganda, locally, we don't get like any support. So most of the support that we get comes from outside Uganda. Like, we have an online campaign that is actually running, and people can actually donate any amount that they can give to the festival.
So if people want to donate, how can they do that?
Well, we have a website. It's www.queerkif.com. So you write the word queer, then KIF is written as KIFF.com. And then there's a donation link on the website.
Great. So it's very easy to do because I've actually already done it.
Yeah,
so,
I actually saw what you contributed. That was really great.
Okay,
it means
awesome.
a lot to us.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. I'm really happy to contribute, and I hope that our listener out there will contribute as well. When you're saying that people write to you and people contact you, do you end up in a bit of a counselling role and a supportive role? Does your work go further than just running this film festival and educating people?
Yes, our work actually goes further than running the film festival because, of course, there are people who have actually written to us when they need like some counseling services. But then we have like other LGBTI organizations that we work with. So we normally recommend them. But then on the other hand, we are moving also into advocacy work because people have always come to us that they have their stories that they want to share. You know, as a film festival, they think that we're a media company that also does films. So we have actually introduced something new this year. It's called the Queer KIF Film Lab, where we actually invite first-time filmmakers to tell their own stories. So we do this kind of work by inviting like professional filmmakers who actually give their skills to people who have never done anything in film. The reason why we did that, there were so many films that were being done about the Ugandan LGBTI community. And these were not actually bad films, but when we screened them to the Ugandan audience, the people in Uganda told us that these are films that were actually promoting the Western gay agenda. Because people in Uganda think that to be gay is something un-African. So right now what we are doing, we want Ugandans to tell their own stories in their own images. So we believe by passing on the skills to first-time filmmakers, we are actually increasing the number of activists or like people who are going to be speaking out.
And you're giving them more skills for job opportunities
Yes.
and developing creative skills and all that sort of thing as well, which is really, really excellent.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's great. And so how many films did you have in your first festival, and then how many are you looking at having in this one coming up in December?
The first festival, we screened over 30 films from Uganda and across Africa. But then we also screened films from Europe, the US. We almost had films from every continent. So this year we are looking at screening over 40 films from Uganda, but then including films from elsewhere.
Oh, congratulations. That's brilliant considering it's only your second year.
Yeah.
How many people do you have working in your team?
Well, the team has 8 people who actually work on a volunteer basis. Like when we started this festival, as the team lead, I told everyone that I was working with that Queer KIF was not actually an employment opportunity. So I told people not to quit their jobs. Like all of us, we have like our other jobs that actually supplement our income. Like we are not career activists. But then during the festival, the number increases because we also get like volunteers, you know, who promote the festival by word to mouth, like talking to people. And then also some actually serve during the festivals. People are actually welcoming the guests and all that.
So you end up with quite a large team working during the festival.
Yeah, during the festival it gets busy, so we end up with a large team.
And are you at any risk from doing this work?
Of course, I'm at risk because, like as I said, there are people who think that I'm actually trying to promote homosexuality.
Which we know you can't, because homosexuality is just the way you're born, just like you're African and I'm Australian.
Yeah, very true. Like, for example, I remember there was one person who came during the festival and they were not happy about one of the films that we screened because it had sex scenes in it. And then this person actually came to us and he was like, he didn't expect to see gay porn, you know, but this was just a film. I mean,
yeah, and
it was just normal sex. But then this person said that such films can actually promote homosexuality, but surprisingly didn't become gay. You know, so,
exactly. So he proved his own theory wrong.
Yeah. So to me, I don't really understand that. And to me, sex is sex. But in Uganda, when they see like LGBTI themed films with sex scenes in them, they say this is gay sex or gay porn. I don't really understand that.
Yes, because we see so many mainstream films with heterosexual sex in them all the time.
And in Uganda, they consider that as normal because even on local TVs, they show a lot of Western films with sex scenes and no one even complains. Sometimes they even show them during daytime when kids are at home, like, it's not that they bring them like late in the night, so it's really interesting.
So it's quite hypocritical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
a very hypocritical approach.
Yeah, it is.
And do you find that you get gay or LGBTI images or media from the US into Uganda? Do you see any of do you see Ellen DeGeneres or, any of the American television that has these characters?
Yes, there are some people who actually have pay TV, and they watch a lot of those international TV programs, but they don't really complain if it is something coming from the West.
Oh. Right, so as long as it's not made in
as long as
Uganda
it's not
and it's not coming from an African.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Can you tell me a story of somebody that you know of who has been outed and has had some struggles or, been at risk because of what's happened to them?
There's someone who actually who acted in one of our films who was actually the main character. If you watch the film Outed, this is someone who is actually not gay. But he's just like one of those straight allies, like people support the community. He told us that immediately when we released the film and then we started doing like the local screenings in Uganda, they had to chase him away from his job. But then luckily enough, he ended up getting another job, but in a different area, not where he was staying.
So he was persecuted for being in the film?
Yeah, I mean, already he's labeled as a gay man because they think you cannot take such a very brave role when you're not part of this community. But then, of course, I have another friend of mine who is actually in the US. This is someone who actually owned a company in Uganda. He owned a tour and travel company. But then he was outed in the media, but he ended up going to the US. So every time when I'm in North America and I visit him, I can really see that he's not even happy, even in that new place where he has actually settled.
Why do you think that is?
Of course, on the other hand, he feels safe because he's in a place where he's well respected. But then there's this sense of missing your home. Imagine being far away from home and he knows that he'll never go back to Uganda. So like his family is still in Uganda, his friends, everything. So when he went to the US, he had to start up afresh.
Yeah.
So right now, I don't think he even has any job there because when you're coming from a place like Uganda, even if you have like a degree, they'll consider you as someone who has never went to school. So you still have to go back and study into their system to understand everything.
Did he leave to go to the US because of his sexuality?
Yes, he was one of the people who were actually outed in the newspapers. So he had to leave Uganda because of his sexuality.
Have you lost any jobs because of your sexuality?
Yes, in Uganda, I run a company called Visual Power Uganda, which actually does filming. We cover people's weddings. We also do like promo videos for charities in Uganda. But then I've lost like about 3 contracts.
Right.
There was a local NGO that had actually contracted me to do like a documentary about their work. But then, of course, when they found out about my other works, like the things that I'm involved in, the human rights activism and all that, they said that they couldn't work with me because they don't want to tarnish their image, company's image.
And how does that feel for you to be treated like that?
Of course, when you lose an opportunity like that of working for a company, you feel bad, because the constitution of Uganda is very clear that everyone deserves the same opportunities just like anyone. Even my right to employment, so to me, that's a human rights violation. Like if people cannot employ me because of who I am or because of my work, I don't really understand that. It's like they don't even want me to survive.
Yeah, it's very unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so hard for me to even imagine it because it's so far removed from what I know in the cultures that I've lived in, whether it be Hong Kong or Australia. Mm-hmm. So I can't really even imagine what that must be like.
Yeah, it's really unfair.
Are your family aware of your sexuality?
Of course, my work has actually, like in one way or the other, been out to my family because of my work.
So your work has kind of outed you. You haven't actually said it to your family.
Yeah, it's even the same thing. Like, people tell me that I'm an activist, but then to me, I consider myself as an accidental activist because I didn't just wake up one day and then I said that I was going to be an activist. But then because of the film that we worked on, and then we started like showing these films in one way or the other, people said that my films, because they were tackling social justice issues, so that's how I actually ended up becoming an activist. But then my background is from that arts.
Oh, from the arts?
Yeah, from the arts, yeah.
Okay, so did you go to university and study in the arts?
Yes, I studied at Uganda Film and Television Institute. I started filming, but then I also got an opportunity to go to Egypt for a short course, in filming. But then most of the things I've learnt them on my own. Like, in Uganda, we don't have good filming schools. So it's more like being self-taught. Like, you study something, but then you don't even, for example, if you're studying about cameras, like camera operation skills.
Yeah.
You don't even like get the opportunity to use the cameras in those universities.
Why?
Because they don't have the equipment. Like, you can find an institute with just one camera or 2, 3 cameras.
Right.
So sometimes you don't even like get the opportunity to practice and all that. Unless if you're from a rich family and then you buy your own equipment. Like, they give you the theoretical part of it, but then you go train on your own.
How have your family responded to your work and then therefore your sexuality? Has there been any discussion? Do they treat you differently in any way, or has it been just carry on as usual?
Of course, I've been treated differently. Like, sometimes I'm not even invited, like, in those family gatherings. Let's say if they have like meetings where they want everyone. But then my mom, on one hand, she doesn't really understand it, but then she has been very supportive. But then she's worried sometimes that I could actually get killed in Uganda. Like, she thinks that by doing what I'm doing, I'm actually exposing myself to danger. So she's more worried about my life.
Yes. And are you worried about that?
Yes, sometimes it worries me. But then every time when I talk to local LGBTI people in Uganda, like, they really inspire me to keep on like doing what I do. Because in Uganda, there are many people who cannot actually speak out. But they are everywhere. Like, queer people are everywhere in Uganda. You'll find them in hospitals. You'll find them in big companies. Only that they cannot come out to tell people about their sexuality.
And what is it like for somebody who has to live in the closet and can't come out and talk about their sexuality? How is that a quality of life?
I mean, it's really painful to be in a society where you don't feel like you're normal. Like when you cannot come out to be with the person you want to be with, But then if I look at the situation in Uganda, I don't really blame the people who are actually in the closet, because if they're doing it for their own safety, I mean, that's one of the best things. It doesn't really feel good for people not to come out. But then if they're just doing it for security purposes, I totally support that.
Yeah, it's wise it's really important to stay safe. That's one of the most important things, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah. And when young people approach you, do they do it by email or on the street? Is it by phone? Like, do you actually have people coming up? Are you a bit famous in Uganda? Do they know who you are?
Yes, because of the festival, like locally, so many people know me. But then most of the people actually reach us out through the festival website. That's when they contact us.
And what do you say to somebody who contacts you and says that they're struggling or that they're really not happy?
To me, I just tell them to live their life the way they want to live it. And then on the other hand, I also advise them to find like support groups, like local LGBTI organizations in Uganda. Sometimes I also invite them when we have like these monthly screenings, because we don't only screen films during the festival, but then we also have like monthly screenings where we can actually show like one film about the LGBTI community, and then we invite people to come and,
Oh, what a good idea.
Participate in the discussions.
And that's also a way for a community to develop so people don't feel so isolated and alone. Is that right?
Yes. And then when I invite like such people who reach us out that they have never even like met anyone who is like them. So when they come to the festival, that's also another opportunity to meet people.
Yeah.
And
is there any sex education in schools? Obviously, there isn't any education about sexuality or gender. Is there any sex education in schools?
No. In Uganda, they see that as something promoting immorality. So we don't have like any sex education in schools.
And how do you think that affects the behavior of young people?
Well, when people are not taught the right things, like about sex, actually it exposes them to diseases and things like that because people need the information. But then we don't have such things where they even like teach about people, about sex. So,
and what about relationships and love and things like that?
Nothing. Like even in my school years, I don't remember something like that. We didn't have it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Do young people have access to pornography in Uganda?
Of course, via the internet they do,
So not having sex education or education about gender or sexuality and then having access to pornography, that seems like it could be a pretty dangerous idea.
Yeah, it is really a dangerous thing because people use the internet in Uganda, most especially people in urban centers. They have access to the internet so they can see all these kind of things. But then on the other hand, the internet can be a bad thing, but then on the other hand, it's also a good thing because people get the information, so they get the information that is not actually taught in school. Yeah.
So you wouldn't have had the access to the internet when you were young, did you? Or I don't know how old you are. How old are you?
I was born in 1986, so I'm actually very old. But then I started using I started using the internet in early 2000s.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how old were you when you started to 15?
Yes, I was about 15.
So around the time
17,
you were starting to realise. So did that help educate you about what was going on for you, or did you not even know what to look for?
No, I actually didn't know what to look for, but then I started searching information about sexuality when there was this new wave of hate that was coming to Uganda, you know?
The new wave of what?
The hate, the hate that was coming to Uganda, like with the American evangelicals coming to Uganda. So when things started to change, when gay people were being discriminated and all that, I was like, what is this? Like, are we normal or is it something bad? So I started like looking for information about it.
And did you find the information that told you that you were normal and that you weren't alone? And did you see coming out stories on YouTube?
Yeah, of course I was
like
seeing like stories from elsewhere.
And was that helpful for you?
Yeah, it was really helpful. Even in my activism work, like when I read stories from elsewhere where it has actually been progressive, like it actually inspires me more to do what I'm doing. Like I believe that when we keep on like doing whatever we are doing right now, maybe years to come, we may be there, we may not be there, but we are actually making it easier for the next people who are going to come before us.
Yeah. And slowly, hopefully the message will get out there and people will slowly start to change their minds. Do you feel like you've had some role in educating your friends and family?
Yes, I believe I've played like a small role, like in changing people's mindsets through my films and then the festival that I'm also working with. Yeah.
Oh, good for you. So if you had any advice for a young person in Uganda who was dealing with their sexuality and they needed someone to talk to, what would you suggest that they do? What's the safest thing you said live their lives and be themselves and go to the different groups, but can they speak to counsellors or teachers or their parents or anything like that, or is that not safe?
It's not really safe. To me, I would say coming out is an everyday thing. Like, it's a process, So if people feel like they cannot be accepted by their families, I advise them like to go slow. Maybe they can identify people in their families, like who is your best friend, for example, in your family. Like such people, maybe they can start by coming out to people who love them more.
Yeah.
But then you don't just come out, at a family gathering.
Yeah. Don't just tell 40 people in the backyard.
Yeah.
But maybe just find that one person that you really can trust and that you feel really you're very close to.
Yes.
Awesome. And so if people want to learn more about your film festival, how can they do that?
Well, if you go on the internet and then you search the Queer Kampala International Film Festival, you'll find so many articles that have been written about the festival. But then we also have a website, which is www.queerkif.com. So you can read more about the festival. Then we also have like some past media coverages that you can actually find on our website. You can see links of articles that have been written.
Have you been to other festivals around the world? You've obviously been invited here to Hong Kong. Have you been invited anywhere else around the world?
Yes, I've been to festivals in Germany. Like in Germany, I screened my film Outed at the African Film Festival in Bayreuth. Then I was also invited back in Germany to be on the international jury of the Teddy.
Oh, great.
Yeah, there's a big film festival there called the Berlinale.
So were you one of the judges?
Yes, I was one of the international.
Oh, that must have been fun. Was that really cool?
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I think I was also like one of the first Ugandans like to serve on that jury. And then I've also been invited in Spain. I was invited in Spain by the mayor of Madrid.
Wow.
Yes. So they had this forum called, I think it was World Social Justice something. I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
But then they were trying to discuss ways of how they can end violence in urban cities. So this was a gathering for all the world mayors. But then obviously in Uganda, the mayors are very homophobic.
Yeah.
But then they identified someone who is not actually working for the mayor's office, like to come and speak about how we can end homophobia in cities. And I represented,
that was you?
Yeah, I represented Uganda.
Wow. You must feel so proud to have opportunities like that.
Yes. And I think I also went back to Spain to serve on a jury of another film festival, an LGBTI film festival there.
And how much have you learnt about running a film festival by going to these other film festivals overseas?
Well, the festivals that I've been to outside Uganda, of course, they are organized in a different way. I must say our festival is really a unique one. Like the approaches in Europe cannot work for our festival.
Okay, how can you explain? How is yours unique?
Well, like ours, we don't go like on TV or radio to advertise it, so everything was actually done underground, and even like the people were coming to the festival, we had to screen them. But then I've been to festivals in Europe where they put like red carpets, like they advertise on radio, TV. If we do such things in Uganda at the moment, would actually expose the festival, like participants to all these homophobic groups.
So could you get raided and people be arrested?
Of course. And for me, as the organizer, that's one of the things that I don't want to see happening at the festival, because as much as I'm doing this, I don't want people to be in problem or in any danger.
So are you actually advertising your festival more internationally than within Uganda?
Yes. But then in Uganda, we have a website that people can actually access.
Yeah. But I guess that's access through the LGBTQI groups.
Yes, we also work with local LGBTI groups, like to reach out to people. But then even when people go online to check on our website, the information about the festival, there's the general information about what the festival is all about. When it comes to venues, they have to contact us via our social media platforms, either on Facebook or on WhatsApp. And then from there, we can actually screen them. We ask them like further questions, like why they want to come and attend the festival. From there, we can actually tell who is homophobic and who is not.
Yeah. So you have to be really careful
we have
about
to
how
really,
you do it.
Yeah.
And that's why your festival is so different to what's happening in Europe, where it's very free and open.
Yeah,
and
I must say
anybody can come.
I must say it's a unique festival.
Yeah, it does sound very unique. How many people are you expecting to come this year, do you think, if you had 800 last year?
Well, this year we believe that the numbers may increase. We could actually get like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people. Because when we announced the dates for the next festival, like people started contacting us early in February. So we announced the dates. We want to maintain the dates. Like the festival always happen in December. But then when we put the word out there that the festival was coming back in December, so people started reaching us out.
That's really fantastic, and congratulations. I'm, so impressed with the work that you're doing, and I hope that everybody stays safe and that it's a really successful festival. Have you ever been arrested or beaten or had any, really dangerous situations because of your sexuality? You said you got fired from your work, but has anything worse happened to you in your life?
Well, I've had to change, my address. In the past 1 year, I've lived, in 5 different places.
Why is that? Do you start getting threats or?
Of course, I start getting threats from my landlords.
Oh.
My previous place where I was staying, my landlord increased my rent. So to me, this was like a clear thing that she didn't want me to stay in that apartment. Just imagine you've been paying, let's say, $500. Then you just wake up and your landlord wants 3,000. How is that fair?
That is a clear message. It's not fair.
Yeah. I mean, I face such challenges, but then being arrested, I wouldn't really say that I've been arrested because of my sexuality. But then there was a time when I was briefly detained at the airport in Uganda. This was actually early this year when I was going to New York. I was invited there for something called the Queer Impact Lab, and I was briefly arrested at the airport in Uganda. So when they arrested me, I think they wanted to find out more information about me and my work, and they were saying that I travel a lot. So there are people in Uganda who think that when we come to places like this, we are actually trying to network with rich gay men who actually fund our activities in Uganda, to recruit children.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
but that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I would say that people who care about human rights work around the world, they should actually support the work done by the local activists in the places where it is actually still dangerous to live as an LGBTI person. For example, we don't charge money for our festival, but in order for us to do this kind of work, we need support. So if you have any special skill, or if you can come to Uganda to volunteer for the festival, you're welcome. So we need people to support us.
Okay, so if anyone out there fancies going to Uganda in December to help out or support at this festival, or donate money or share their skill set in some way,
or even come and attend.
Come and attend the festival.
Events,
they should get in touch.
Yeah.
And I think that the message that you're spreading is really fantastic, and I hope that people recognize. I mean, it's something like 74 different countries in the world where being gay is illegal, isn't there? Is that correct? Do you know?
I remember when we started the festival, there were around 75 countries, but I know Belize changed their laws. So, and then there's also, I think, another country. Now I think there must be between 74 and 73.
And do you think there's any chance of the change in law in Uganda?
With the current system, because we have a president who has been in power for 31 years and he still wants to rule. So sometimes even uses the LGBTI community as a scapegoat. But I believe the situation may actually change in Uganda, because when I look at Uganda, it's a youthful population. Probably all the bad guys are going to die because they are quite old. And then when the young people come, they'll actually fix those problems and then move on. Yeah.
Well, let's hope so. That's a good hope for the future.
Yeah.
So, Kamoga, thank you so much for meeting with me today and talking to me. I really, really appreciate it. And good luck with your festival. And it's been fantastic to meet you here in Hong Kong.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
See you later.
You're welcome.
So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it? I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.